G'day YouTube, Aussie Mark here with another folding knife review, and today the knife we're looking at, in case you haven't already recognised it, and I'm sure you have, is the very well known Ontario Rat Model 1 folding knife. There's two of the knives we have here in front of us today to look at, two variations, both are plain edge. As I've probably mentioned in other videos, I'm not really into serrations much. I prefer plain edge simply because to me it's easy to sharpen, and for my tasks I generally don't need serrated edge. Anything I need to cut through, even be it rope, something like that, the plain edge will get through it. Maybe take a couple of seconds longer perhaps, but in general terms to me that's not an issue. For some people serrations are great. They're cutting a lot of rope or they've got that sort of task on hand, maybe rescue tasks. Go for it. The serrations are available in this knife. They're serrated towards the rear portion of the blade. The other difference is of course we have what they call the satin edge, which is this one, which is my favourite one, and of course they have a black finish. To be honest, I was never going to get this in the black finish. I initially ordered this just as a second because I liked the first knife so much and I wanted another satin. All that was available was the black, so I took it, so I've got one of each. I understand that the black finish is basically just painted. It's not particularly durable. But anyway, there it is for what it's worth. It does, however, allow us to show the markings on the blade for the purpose of the video very nicely. On the main part of the blade we've got the Randall's Adventure Training logo. They were involved with Ontario Knives back in the day when these knives were put out. They have gone out on their own now with, I think it's AUS8 knives, and they're doing their own line of knives. And you can also see there, we'll turn that around, it is of course, as mentioned, a Model 1, and it mentions the steel type, which is AUS8 stainless steel. On the other side, not much on there. The knife's actually made in Taiwan. If that's a problem, people I know in the States are big on buying the United States made product, and that's terrific. I like buying Australian made too. However, we basically don't have a local knife industry. We've got a few custom knife makers, but as for mass production knives, it basically just doesn't happen here. So everything we buy, sadly, in this country is imported. We probably export the raw materials to make the steel, and then we import the knives back in. So I'll put the black one off to one side and we'll look at the satin edge. As I say, it is the one that I have been using. The black one basically is a collection clean. It sits in the collection. Should anything happen to this one, I've got a backup knife that I can pull out and throw into use. Knife, as I've said, satin edge, plain edge this one. Very nice finish actually. I think for the price point you're paying, we'll talk about the price later, really not a lot not to like about this knife. I'll just have a quick overview of it there. The type of knife it is a linerlock, which you can see there. This is the first linerlock I ever owned. One of the reasons I bought the knife, in fact, was to see what I thought of the linerlock mechanism. Don't mind it. Quite good. Deployment on these knives, very quick indeed, as you can see there. Uses for this knife, I suppose you could EDC this knife. For my purposes, I think for around town this would be a little bit too much knife for EDC. A little bit big and also a little bit heavy. But certainly I use it for when I go out bushwalking, out in the the more remote areas. This knife will ride in my pocket. Generally I've got a sheath knife, fixed blade knife in the pack, but this is my knife that's basically there when I need it, and I can use that for all my tasks. The extra blade length is a little bit more handy in that type of environment. The blade on this knife is a typical rat-shaped knife. I guess you'd call it a drop point. There's not a heck of a lot of drop in this section of the blade, but there's a little bit there. It's very much the typical rat shape. If you look at the rat line of knives, both in the Ontario and indeed in their own company now, this is a very distinctive shape on their folder and also on their fixed blades of all the various sizes. It's a very practical shape, 4-flat ground, which is excellent, and very sharp out of the box. A lot of belly, excellent cutting. Most of your cutting tasks can be done in this area, and you've got a lot of knife to work with there. It's very good. On the back we've got a slight thumb ramp, a little bit of jimping, not particularly sharp, but it works, it's okay. We've got a thumb stud on either side, as you can see there, and basically a little bit of a chore there. So the cutting edge runs right back and up to there. It gives you an awful lot of cutting edge to work with. Very useful knife indeed. The knife blade length, I should say, is 3.6 inches. That's in the old school, 92mm in my part of the world. The knife itself, a few stats more. Length of the knife when it's open, as you see it there, from end to end is 8.5 inches or 217mm. When you close the knife up, you're looking at 5 inches or 127 millimeters. So it is a little bit long for pocket carry, as I say, for everyday use, and it is indeed weighty. One of the reasons it is weighty is, of course, it runs full stainless steel liners. Now, that's not normally a big issue, but as you may be able to see in here, we get a bit of light on the subject. As you probably already know with this knife, they're not milled out at all, they're not drilled out. So there is a substantial amount of weight in that handle. Again, I don't mind that. I think it gives the knife a very good solid feel in the hand. And again, I pick the times when I'm going to carry this knife and particularly use it, so that suits what I'm taking. I don't think that's an issue. You could probably drill those out. In fact, I know you can. Mr. Nut and Fancy on his channel, in fact, did just that. I think he's got a tutorial video on the subject. I'm not going to do it with mine, but it can be done, I'm sure. I don't know how much weight it takes out. You could certainly watch his video and check that out and decide if it's something that you might like to do. As mentioned, deployment on the knife, very, very fast indeed. I don't think I adjusted that pivot at all. That was how it came out of the box. Very effective. The liner lock, strong, no problem there. It's not going to come back and bite you or anything like that. Liner locks, by definition, and I'm going to get on my left-handed hobby horse here, are predominantly designed for right-handers so that you can push that lock across with your right thumb. It is usable as lefties. We've just got to kind of do this. For me, it's easy to close it two-handed, although I can manipulate it like that and then close the knife one-handed. It just takes a little bit of practice, like anything else. But very, very slick mechanism. Almost as good as the Axis lock Benchmade knives, and that's saying something, because they are pretty much the standard that I judge everything else by. Lock up, very good. This has had a little bit of use. I've had this knife for probably getting on towards a year. As I say, it goes out some weekends with me. Lock up's tight. I see no reason that that would change. It is adjustable, as I say, and I think it should long term be quite a good performer. The clip on the knife, very good, quite tight. Certainly holds the knife in place, and fabulously enough, it is adjustable for lefties, righties, and look at that, tip up or tip down. So the clip's basically four-way adjustable. You can mount that to suit yourself. Held on with Torx screws, the whole knife put together with Torx bits. You can just see them there, 3 of those on there, and of course they go through down into the liner, which is tapped out to take those screws. That's really great. Lanyard hole at the end as well. I generally don't put lanyards on my folding knives, but certainly should you wish to do so, you can. So the quality of the knife overall, I'd have to say it's very good, particularly given the price point this comes in at. As I say, bought this knife last year here in Australia, and I think, in fact I know, I'll just look it up, $63 Australian I paid for this blade. In the States I'm not sure what the price is, but I know it is available at a very good price point. And basically you just can't go wrong. Now, as I mentioned before, this knife out of the box, both of them in fact, so this one's straight out the box, hasn't had any use, and you can see there the deployment, as I mentioned on the other one, if I can get it right. Very slick, no adjustment from myself on that whatsoever, and that just flies out of the handle. Very, very nice. And if we want to give this a little cutting test, we'll just this one out of the way, see what they're like, as I say, out of the box. Not very impressive. I think I'm holding the paper wrong. That's better. Very tough paper today. It came out sharp. It's still sharp now. The other one's a tad dull. I really need to touch that one up. It's had a bit of work, but they do come very sharp out of the box. I was cutting much better when I tried it before the video started, but of course once the camera's on, things never work, do they? So, bottom line for this knife, it's an excellent knife. It's good to use. It's got all the carry options you could want. As I say, 4-way clip adjustment. Price point is brilliant. I dare say most people watching this video have probably already got one or two, but if you don't and you've been thinking about it, wondering should I get one, yeah, you should. Very, very good. There's not a bad thing I can say about the knife. Probably the only downside, and I didn't mention the handle. The handle is made of Zytel. It's not particularly grippy, the handle on this knife. However, having said that, if you look at the shape of the knife and the shape of the handle, it does tend to lock your hand in there rather nicely. So that the fact that it's a little bit smooth, to be honest, I don't believe is any kind of an issue. The knife really isn't going anywhere. So the handle's good. Excellent radiusing also on the edge of the handle. We'll try and get a close-up. You'll see there, I'll turn it around this way, perhaps you can probably pick up there. All the edges are very nicely radiused, so there's no sharp edges on this knife when you hold it in your hand, which I think is terrific. Very well featured knife. As I say, price point, simply brilliant in my opinion, and I can't recommend the knife highly enough. Downsides, yeah, it's a little bit heavy. Again, could be modded if you wish to do so. Not a big issue if you're aware of it. And that's my review of the Rat Model 1, one of the many reviews of this knife on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed it. All the best. See you again.